Hello, everyone. This week, Paige and I will be presenting about Al Jazeera. We chose a story from Al Jazeera English, which is a sector of Al Jazeera targeted towards an English-speaking audience. We chose the story, Saudi Arabia Invests in Hollywood Amid COVID-19 Crisis, because it relates to the article for this week and offers an example of how the public sphere is represented or not represented in newspapers and television stations today. It is also relevant to the time we're living in, as many of the businesses the news report discusses have fallen due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. It also reports from a transnational news story, talking about Saudi Arabia, the United States, and touching on the Gulf countries' crisis. Something that was really interesting to Paige and me was the idea that a country could be prosperous during this hard time, especially taking into account the United States' current economic situation.
As the world economy staggers under the shock of the coronavirus, Saudi Arabia, led by de facto ruler Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, is going bargain shopping.
These are very speculative investments, but it does seem like they will spend money at any place that's asking.
The $320 billion Saudi Public Investment Fund has bought big stakes in companies devastated by COVID-19, as the fund's governor explained in an investors' video conference.
So for us, definitely we're looking into any opportunities. I mean, if you look at the different sectors, like airlines, oil and gas, entertainment.
The Saudi fund snapped up 8.2% of Carnival Cruise Lines, some of whose passengers were sickened by coronavirus in the early stages of the outbreak. Carnival's stock price was in the cellar. The fund also invested $500 million in Live Nation, parent company of Ticketmaster, and a leader in big live concerts featuring the likes of Madonna.
They are a little bit scattershot. They're mostly in entertainment.
A Saudi-led group is trying to buy Newcastle United, a football club in the English Premier League, for about $370 million. And the Saudis are reportedly seeking a stake in Warner Music, which owns and operates some of the world's biggest record labels and music publishers.
Look, I think every company that needs money is lining up and calling Saudi Arabia, and that wasn't the case a few months ago.
Indeed, the Saudi regime was, for a time, an international business pariah, following the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. A killing investigations by the UN and the CIA concluded was most likely orchestrated by the Crown Prince.
Now to delve into some background for the story. Saudi Arabia and Qatar have a complicated relationship, which we'll explore more later. But according to the Al Jazeera PowerPoint, governments of Qatar tend to censor Al Jazeera mostly on matters related to Qatar, such as the recent Gulf countries crisis, which includes Saudi Arabia. Also, according to the Al-Baghdadi article, Saudi Arabia worked to deploy dozens of verified accounts to flood the Arab public sphere with propaganda and then arrest individual voices within the community in an attempt to silence the public.
To start off, the visual style includes many pictures of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia in a very distant manner. One image shows him whispering with someone, implying that he's secretive. In addition, an image is shown with his back turned to the camera, staring at numbers on a screen. This also shows how a distance between the audience and the prince and the government's current interest in money and investments from the screen. By creating a distance between the prince and the audience, we do not see the story from his perspective, but rather from an outside perspective. Another aspect of the visual style includes the images used when the narrator is describing the investments that Saudi Arabia is currently making. Images are clearly from before COVID-19, showing a packed cruise ship and people without masks. In addition, they use multiple images from concerts with large crowds and people performing, which is something that just isn't possible in the current global landscape. However, Saudi Arabia has invested in these same events that are not allowed today. These images imply that Saudi Arabia is making risky investments and that they are taking advantage of low stocks caused by COVID-19 without thinking about how much longer the pandemic could last. The story additionally includes images that show people with posters saying what happened to Jamal Khashoggi at what seems to be a sort of protest or rally against the Saudi Arabian government. This implies that citizens are angry at the Saudi government and that the government is lying to them. It also introduces the audience to an evil side of the government as they are accused of murdering a prominent journalist in Saudi Arabia. The last visual elements of importance are used to assassinate the prince's character. After showing a clip of Jamal Khashoggi walking into the murder scene, they show a video of the prince laughing at a conference. This leads the audience to believe that the prince has no regard for human life and is perfectly content with killing innocent people. The textual style of the story is used to show the bad economic decisions that the Saudi Arabian government is making and that they are capitalizing off the pandemic. The story says Saudi Arabia is going bargain shopping and spending money at any place asking for it. These two statements imply that Saudi Arabia is making poor investment decisions and capitalizing on the poor state of businesses during the pandemic. This paints the government in a negative light, further villainizing them to the audience. The story also says that the investments are a little bit scattershot and that every company that needs money is lining up and calling Saudi Arabia. This further implies that Saudi Arabia is making some rash economic decisions and taking advantage at this time because they are usually not a trusted government. Lastly, the narrative and textual style is used to villainize the Saudi Arabian government and Crown Prince. The text talks about how the Crown Prince was involved in the murder of a prominent journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. The text says the Saudi regime was, for a time, an international business pariah following the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, and a killing investigation by the UN and CIA concluded was most likely orchestrated by the Crown Prince. This causes the audience to distrust the Saudi Arabian government as a whole and to view the Crown Prince as a man who doesn't care about human life. It is also important to note that in the entire narrative, only one clip is used from the Saudi Arabian perspective. The clip used is from Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund governor and discusses how they are looking at many options for investments in the entertainment industry. However, no other perspective from the Saudi government is shown, showing how the story does not give them a chance to defend themselves. This again shows how the story aims to villainize the Saudi Arabian government and show them in a negative light.
To talk about the political nature of the story, it is important to recognize Al Jazeera is funded by the royal family of Qatar. Currently, there are rising tensions between Qatar and Saudi Arabia as part of the Gulf War crisis, which began when Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Egypt banned Qatar's registered airplanes and ships from utilizing their airspace and sea routes, blocking Qatar's only land crossing. To that extent, in 2017, Al Jazeera was blocked by Saudi Arabia and broadcasts were and still are not available in the country. According to a CNN article, Saudi-owned TV channel Al Arabiya said its rival had been barred after the ruler of Qatar was reported to have described Iran as an Islamic power and criticized President Trump's policies towards Tehran. This is important because Saudi Arabia and Iran are rivals. Our argument is the visual, textual, and political elements of our story paint a negative image of the Saudi Arabian government in order to villainize their political leaders for capitalizing off the COVID-19 pandemic. We believe this is due to a hindered relationship between not only Qatar and Saudi Arabia, but also between specifically Al Jazeera and Saudi Arabia. Our discussion questions are, do you agree with our argument, why or why not? And according to the El-Baghdadi reading, Jamal understood the direct link between a healthy public sphere and citizens' ability to liberate themselves from imposed narratives. Crucially, he also understood that in Arabic context, the public sphere no longer existed in city squares, newspapers, and television stations. Do you think the public sphere still exists within the polarized media environment in the United States? Why or why not?